That'd be a travesty if I didn't. And I'll get your intro done and we'll get started.
All right, all square.
All right, cool. Well, guys, welcome or welcome back. In case you're new here, I should introduce myself. My name is BJ Kicks, and this is Comics Are Dope, the podcast. And as usual, I've got a special treat of a guest for you here tonight. This young man is an Emmy-nominated writer of such amazing works as Inside Job and Clone High, The Nevers you may have seen on streaming. Most recently, a series called Strip Law, an animated series, which sounds fun. But he's also a writer of comics. He's written for characters like Loki, Spider-Man, the Black Panther versus Deadpool series, which sounds interesting and crazy to me. And one of my favorites, of course, is Darkwing Duck. So here to talk about all of that, as well as the upcoming Lilo and Stitch 626 issue number 1, is Mr. Daniel Kibblesmith. How are you today, sir?
I'm really good. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I'm excited to have you here. It's really fun when you think someone is new. It's like, oh, it's a name I'm not familiar with. And then you go through the credits and it's like, this man has been here forever. And I just didn't know it.
Yeah. No, I get that a lot. That overnight success over 10 years kind of vibe.
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So first of all, thank you for taking the time out to do this on your busy evening. And thank me for taking the time to close all these stupid things that are making noise in the background.
I know, I checked mine too. I was like, oh, that's me.
Discord. I can't live with that. Live with it or without it. But anyways, but yeah, thanks for taking time to be here. I'm excited to have you, but I'm more excited to dig into your story. How'd you get here? What was this 10-year overnight path that you took?
Sure. Well, I say 10 years. I think that I did my first comic book writing in 2012. So it's getting closer to 14. But I lived in Chicago. I'm in Los Angeles now. And at the time I was working for internet companies, doing writing in marketing departments. And from there was able to get a job working for the Onion organization, first on the Onion News Network, which is like their video department, and then on the famous website Clickhole, which I got to write for at the very beginning. So I think that was around the time that I had enough of sort of an online following to attract the attention of other comic book creators, aspiring writers and editors who were friends of friends. And that's when people started taking a shot on me. So I got to do a little bit of work for Valiant in later than 2012, because 2012 was their big rebrand. So this was probably closer to 2013, 2014. I got to write some funny advertisements, fake advertisements for Valiant Comics, and then do fake G.I. Joe style PSAs, like parody G.I. Joe PSAs for another Valiant comic. And those went, well enough that they let me do a 4-part digital first alternate universe series called Valiant High. So a classic, very fanficky, classic, high school alternative universe with the Valiant superheroes. So that was the beginning of my comics writing. And I attracted the attention of Marvel and DC after I moved to New York and started writing for The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, which I did from 2015 to 2020.
Nice. Another interesting fact. I'm pretty sure that Dynamite writer Elliot Kalin also wrote, not for Colbert, but for the competition over at The Daily Show. So
that is correct. Yeah.
I wonder what is it about these humor writers? And it could just be that Nate Cosby enjoys, good humor and ice cream, but it could also just be that there's some correlation. I wonder if there's a transferable skill from humor writing to comic book writing that you've noticed.
I think that's right. It's something that I've thought about a lot, and certainly The Daily Show and the Colbert Report, and then the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, which is the one that I wrote for, all share a certain storytelling philosophy in terms of how they introduce information to the audience, how they educate the audience on a topic so that the audience can feel like they're participating while they're getting the jokes. And by the end of a Daily Show segment, let's say, at the beginning of the segment, they might be like, here's this congressman from Iowa that you've never heard of. But those shows are so good at creating sort of analogous stories that already kind of live in the audience's head. Like you could say something like, this congressman from Iowa is behaving like a bad roommate, or this congressman from Iowa is behaving like a drug dealer, or a stepfather or a landlord. Like they're very good at using archetypes to tell a story on the fly. And I think in some ways comic books are really similar because, especially with IP comics, and I'm counting, big two superheroes as IP, you are kind of dealing in archetypes, and you're using what the audience knows already to meet their expectations or subvert their expectations, or create, surprises when somebody that you do feel like, like Spider-Man or Deadpool, reacts out of character. That's an interesting feeling. That's an interesting moment. So those are kind of different. One of them you start with somebody who's totally unfamiliar. One of them you start with somebody who's, very familiar, like Deadpool. But I think that there's a sort of comparable economy of storytelling. It's very punchline focused. And in the case of comics, I don't just mean punchlines as jokes, but punchlines as sort of like punchy moments, like sort of brief, succinct bullet points. I think writing short form comedy and writing, visual moments and dialogue that can fit in word balloons use a lot of the same skills, just a lot of the same stuff that we've practiced. Another great talk show writer turned comic book writer is Jeff Loveness, who worked on the Jimmy Kimmel Show and has done a bunch of really cool his own comic work and big two comic work as well. So yeah, there's a few of us. I'm really interested in how they feel about it. I don't think I've ever talked to them about this.
I don't think I asked Elliot when I had him on the show that specific question. So now he has to write something else so I can ask him. But, one thing I'm curious about, right? Because your career has very much been a writing career, from ad copy to, jokes for television to comic books. Was there a specific goal in mind? Like, was it like, I want to write for a show, or I want to write comics, or was it just like, I want to write?
I think it was always both, because at the beginning of a career, especially when people are starting to take you seriously for the first time, it's very exciting because you're hearing yes, and you're taking baby steps, and you're starting to progress. So I always knew that I wanted to write for I knew I wanted to write entertainment for a national audience. I think for when I was a kid, I thought I wanted to like write and direct movies. And I went to school for film, and I directed, I edited, I wrote, and I found that writing was the part that felt the most like creation to me. Directing is also very, very hard, directing was really hard for me, and running a set and managing the human elements and the technical elements, at least at that time in my life, was just enormously stressful. So I liked making comedy shorts. I starred in most of them myself. I did a lot of green screen and puppetry, and trying to do like freelance viral videos for like local companies and stuff like that. So I always knew that I wanted to create media for a national audience, and I loved superhero comic books, and I loved genre television, like Star Trek, Buffy, X-Files, Futurama. So when people started to say yes to me, it was very important to me that I try to say yes to as many things as possible, because you never know what's going to hit. So I have really, as long as I've had the opportunity to do so, I've maintained a parallel career in comics and television, and the comics can help me get television work, and the television work definitely helps me get comics work, because unfortunately television is still seen as more prestigious than comic books. I don't know if I agree with that, but it's usually gets a larger audience. So I kind of just tried to do everything that I was allowed to do. And that's still pretty much my philosophy. I've only very recently gotten to a place where I feel comfortable saying no to some things.
Yeah, I was just talking to David Avalone about being a writer of comics and of television. And he was talking about how writing the comics made him more bankable as a TV writer. Like, because it's like, okay, I can have a string of like terribly produced independent films that go nowhere, or I can have like a full story somewhere, and they're like, okay, cool, he did a thing, now let's get him in the room. I think it's interesting how that works, because it's true that like, just about everything has a bit more prestige than comics for whatever reason. But like, it feels like the people that know.
I think that's right. The people who speak that language, you can kind of communicate with each other on that frequency, and it's always fun when you can like meet somebody who works in television or works in movies, like somebody who has exposure to celebrities on a regular basis, but then you find out that they're a comic book fan, and they'll be like, "Oh my God, you met Bill Sienkiewicz? Like that person's famous," like that. It's really interesting. It's for better or worse, there's a secret club element to comics. I think sometimes people are doing the secret club in the wrong way, and using it to exclude people or set artificial boundaries. But when the secret club is really fun is when it lets you make friends and make stuff.
With that being said, right, like how hard was it for you breaking into the secret club?
I guess it was one of those things like, any other young person trying to get a dream job, where I just had to do it a lot, badly, independently, unpaid, until, even if the work that I was making, like zine style work with friends or work that I was putting online, even if that work wasn't particularly good, I think that when you're engaging with the art form, and when you're engaging with the community surrounding it, you just end up knowing people and taking each other seriously. I think I became, online and at conventions and locally, I think I just had enough of a critical mass of somebody who was working really hard to try to do comics. So even if the work itself wasn't necessarily getting me a job, it was making me friends and contacts. And, when I went to college, they tried to teach us about networking. And I think that they did a lot of harm by making networking seem very superficial and very sort of, schmoozy and hollow, and like kind of introducing yourself to people for the sake of introducing yourself to people, and not really making any real connection with the person that you just met, or explaining or justifying why you would ever work together. And it wasn't until I was firmly in adulthood that I realized real networking is just like being a friend, like being an enthusiastic person in a common space where you guys are all talking about comics, or you're all doing stand-up together, which is something that I briefly did and stopped doing, but am now friends with many stand-up comics. So, yeah, I think that it's such common advice now with all of the technology and distribution that's at everyone's disposal. But the answer really is that you just kind of start doing it. And as long as you're making something and you are existing in some kind of real or online community with people, you start gravitating towards each other and collaborating, and the things that you make get bigger and more official. And as long as you're respectful and meet your deadlines, you're going to race ahead of a lot of the competition, because a lot of people are not respectful and not capable of making deadlines.
That's facts. Well, congratulations, audience member listening to this. You no longer need to read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. I never read it. And apparently, Daniel, have you read that book yet?
No, but I did write with, one of my friends who I ended up working with is a comedy writer named Sam Weiner. And we wrote a parody of that book called How to Win at Everything.
Okay. Nice.
So just coincidentally, I made fun of it, but I didn't actually read it.
Parodying a thing you haven't read is amazing.
It's pretty rude, I think. It's pretty disrespectful to not do the bare minimum.
That's true. That's true. But hey, it's okay. It worked out. So it's funny because you were going through like that whole speech on networking, and all that I could think about was Elliot telling me how he got into comics. Have you heard the story?
No. I know that he was a comedy writer, and I love his podcast. And then I just saw one day that he was writing comic books, and I was like, I bet these are really good.
So Elliot, if I remember the story correctly, Elliot was just like kind of out with a friend, like I think attending a live taping of some podcast. And there's like a segment for like audience questions or whatever. And he just kind of floats this ridiculous idea of like, well, what if there was like a zombie apocalypse and like Superman was there or whatever. I am now completely making up the superhero angle on whatever it was he was saying. And it just so happened that there was a Marvel editor in the room and was like, that actually works for this anthology I'm working on. Like, can you like do 5 pages on this? And now Elliot Kalin is writing comics. And that is like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's unreal. But I mean, so much of it is just like putting yourself out there. And I think comics, more than a lot of mediums, are very friendly to being able to do that online.
Yeah.
But a story like that really shows that you also can't discount, going to small local conventions, hanging out at your local shop, really having like an in-person relationship with retailers and other aspiring creators. So I'm very pro, online community for comics. I know that that's where a lot of people do everything, where it makes their comics lives possible. But if you can, I always encourage, getting out there as well.
It's super helpful, for sure. Interestingly, I mean, I don't know if there's anything that I do that I would be able to do if I didn't like just jump online and do stuff like this being the primary example, right? Like I was just making videos and one day it's Nick Barucci in my inbox, like, hey, would you be willing to interview some of our writers? And I'm like, yes. And you're Nick Barucci. Like, thanks, Mean Joe. like, sure. And now here we are, some 100 episodes later. But it's like, you never know who's watching. You don't know like what's going on. And that's wild. It's wild. So really, really fun stuff. Not to, super harp on networking advice. But I am curious as to, because you did say like there's a part of you that's like, all right, I don't want to say no to many opportunities. How do you determine what's the right thing to say yes to?
It's very silly, but I ask my wife sometimes. She'll say like, "Oh, that sounds like fun," or "You love that kind of thing." I think that it's a recent development, but I've just gotten better at keeping a schedule and being realistic about how much time I have. The other day, I got an opportunity to work on an IP that I wasn't familiar with, and I said no because I realized the amount of research I would have to do to get the voice right would eat into the amount of time that I had to write the script. So I sort of inadvertently stumbled into a new loose guideline, which is that maybe I only jump on IP comics, like Darkwing Duck, like Lilo and Stitch, where it's something that I'm such a big fan already that it will be less of an uphill climb to get to the place where I can do like a really like sincere and passionate job at it. So I think really being honest with yourself is the answer to that question. And one thing that takes the edge off is that once you start making comics and participating in the comics community, oftentimes you'll be able to say like, I'm not the person for that job, but I actually can recommend somebody that is the person for this job. And maybe like they're really new, and this would be like a big break for them. So that definitely takes the edge off of having to turn down work. But generally speaking, I just love basically all of pop culture. So it's really hard for me to find things where it's like there's stuff where like I know there's like a Cowboys of Moo Mesa comic.
Yeah.
And I can say like, oh, I don't know really what that is.
Right.
I've heard of it. But there's got to be somebody out there who like loves the Cowboys of Moo Mesa. Yeah. So you should give it to them. But if they were like, oh, but Ninja Turtles, they'd be like, oh yes, yeah, no, I know those guys.
Right.
Yes, I definitely have an idea for the Ninja Turtles, and that lets me sort of prioritize. Is this because all that really matters is that it gets done. So is this something that I am excited about enough that it will have enough passion pushing it that it definitely gets to the finish line, and I don't make anybody's day harder by blowing it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And yeah, speaking of these IP comics, there are so many of them. Like in the last 3 years that have just been popping up. We got Powerpuff Girls, and there's a Ben 10 comic coming out, which was like just a touch after my time, like really in cartoons. There's, all of the Disney stuff that Dynamite's doing. We got an Aladdin series coming. We've had all the Disney villains stuff. And, I think you are volume 2 of their Darkwing Duck. Like,
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's so much. You mentioned the Cowboys of Moo Mesa, which I also was not familiar with, but it's the same people that did the Biker Mice from Mars, which I'm familiar with the theme song somehow.
Sure. Yeah, you picked some up along the way, some osmosis.
Right. We got Street Sharks. Like it's insane how much IP stuff is out there. And like, it's gotta be an amazing time to be like a pop culture nerd. Like there's so much to choose from.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I don't remember who ended up being the creative team on the Gaston one shot, but I was really jealous when I saw that come out because I was like, I would love to do Gaston. He is so funny to me. But no, you're right. I think that this obsession with the Hollywood and Hollywood adjacent current obsession with reboots and IP and these kind of pre-sold brands, as they call them sometimes, the kind of nostalgia market is a double-edged sword, but I don't think it's really stopped cool independent stuff from coming out. Maybe cool independent stuff isn't getting as much money as it used to or as many eyeballs as it used to, but there's still lots of really, really, really cool original comics and movies coming out, especially in the sort of like the spaces that have always supported that kind of thing, like horror, low budgets, found footage, and I think that's true of comics as well. Like, strange kind of horror adjacent. It's something like Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, like just something that you never saw coming.
Right.
And so I'm mostly, I think, like pretty positive about the IP boom, just as somebody who is like a big dork and like excited to play with the toys in the sandbox. And I do have my own, creator owned stuff coming soon that I'm excited about. And I think that there will be room on the shelf for it when it arrives. So yeah, on the whole, I think this is cool. I think it's like a cool time to be like, we do love all of these nostalgic cartoon characters, and we do kind of want to, dust them off and take them for a spin and, like, I don't know, learn more about Ursula. Like, I think that people really, really like that stuff. The sort of the revisiting, the remixing, and you can get interesting things out of it, I think, as long as you put dedicated creators on these books. Like, I haven't read it yet, but I saw at a con that Disney Publishing was doing a book about what if Sally the Ragdoll had found the holiday doors instead of Jack Skellington. Huh. And on one hand, that movie is so sacred to me that I'm like, don't break it, don't touch it, don't dilute it by putting more kind of what if spin-offs out there. But on the other hand, it's like, well, that's a very compelling question, because like I was saying earlier, I already have a relationship with these characters, and now I kind of want to see how that plays out. Yeah, I felt that way when I saw there's a Lion King comic coming out. Like, The Lion King is probably my favorite Disney movie. It's my first experience that I remember in a movie theater. Like, that movie just means the world. And like The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, that was fine. The Timon and Pumbaa animated series, I don't need this. The Lion King 1.5, like, that was cool to watch the one time. And I thought I was done. And then The Lion Guard came out,
And that's what my daughter watched. And I'm like, why are you watching this? No, we're turning the real Lion King on. Right. So
right.
in my head, I've banned all Lion King sequels. And then Edwin Gallman comes with this story set right after the elephant graveyard scene. And it's like, oh, this is dope. Like it's not trying to establish anything new necessarily. It's just everyone in this story acting the way that they would act in every other scenario based on the time period the story's set in. And I'm like, okay, I can just enjoy this adventure. I don't have to worry about like some weird made for TV villain popping up. Like this is nice. So
yeah, I think we're talking about the same thing, which is just that if it is of a certain degree of quality, then it earns its keep.
Right.
And becomes undeniable. If it feels like it's insulting to the audience, then the audience will respond that way.
Right. And speaking of not feeling insulting to the audience, right, I have to say thank you for your Darkwing Duck run. It was great. It was awesome. I should say I hope that eventually we get more of it. I don't know where that stands, but if I'm to believe the title pages, this was initially conceived as like a 12-part story, and we've only got 6 installments so far.
Correct. Yes. We got interrupted by a couple of crossover events. One is the ongoing Darkwing Duck's Gargoyles crossover with the original creators, Tad and Greg. So that's a big deal. So we paused our Darkwing to let that happen. And then it's not announced yet, but there might be another sort of related thing that I'm working on. And then when that is concluded, the plan is to do the back 6 of our Darkwing Duck Volume 2. So the first 6 are going to come out in a paperback this year, very soon, I think. I want to say next couple of months. And then there's some kind of unannounced Darkwing-ish stuff going on. And then back to our series, back to the basics. That I really appreciate you saying that, because I feel the same way. That was one where I just had so much love and respect for the source material that I didn't come to the table with any big ideas. I wasn't like, this is a serialized story about Goslin becoming, Gizmo Gaz, and she's Gizmo Duck's sidekick or something. Like, that sounds fun. Mm-hmm. But I was like, let's just do the show.
Yeah.
Let's just try to do like 12 more episodes of Darkwing Duck. And, for the first 6 that are available, I really, really hope that they feel that way. The only kind of ambitious thing that I did was it's loosely centered around the idea of Darkwing Duck writing his autobiography and being a really unreliable narrator. So every 3 issues, which means 2 of the current 6, are sort of like these, untold tales, kind of like maybe it's an origin story, but he's probably making it up or exaggerating. Right. So kind of like an air quotes flashback, I guess you would call it.
Yeah. Now, I think my favorite part, I think this is in issue 1. And he goes, like I always say, or am possibly saying for the first time, let's get dangerous. And it's like,
that's right. Yes, that's right.
That's perfect.
Yeah, that's what we're doing, because it's ostensibly, it's called Darkwing Duck Year 1, but Disney is also very specific about not establishing any like new firm canon in the comic books.
Gotcha.
So you have to play with that tension of, we want to tell an origin story, but also we're not really allowed to. And luckily, we're doing Darkwing Duck, so we can play with that tension comedically.
Yeah.
And we can have this guy who does have a giant ego and is self-mythologizing and is not a reliable narrator. So he's kind of the perfect character to tell an origin story that probably isn't even 50% true.
Right. I prefer the term fun, reliable narrator, by the way. But
that's right. That's right.
I love that when you see him like telling his origin story, he's imagining himself as Batman in year one. Like, of course he is. Like,
for a minute there, yeah.
Right.
For a minute there. And then I kind of let myself have that because I know that Tad, the creator of Darkwing, has also written and given interviews about how he doesn't really see Darkwing as like a Batman parody, that he's really more of just like a new pulp style character. And I agree with that, and I want to honor that. But I think in the first issue of a book that was going to be called Darkwing Duck Year One, you need a little bit of acknowledgement that you're riffing on at least that aspect of Batman.
And it's not like Disney hadn't riffed on that before, right? Like they had a whole arc called The Duck Knight Returns. Like,
oh yeah.
You know,
I mean, and I think that's another reason not to play that note too much is just because, we know what it sounds like.
True. But it absolutely felt like each issue is it's like a new episode of the show. I love the sort of villain of the week aspect. Like, I think that's just fun to do with Darkwing in general because he's got a great rogues gallery. I think my
really good rogues gallery.
Yeah, I think my
I would put it up there.
But who's yours?
Yeah, Megavolt. Yeah. No question. I mean, there's lots of great Darkwing Duck villains. I really love Liquidator as well. I think his.
I was gonna say, like, how do you write ad copy and your favorite's not the Liquidator?
Yeah, don't worry, he's number 2. But Megavolt is just so undeniable. His personality is so distinct and awful. He's a really fun character to write. Megavolt is the first villain I brought back. I do Megavolt twice in the first 6.
Yeah,
that's how much I love him.
Yeah, no, I think Megavolt's just a classic design to me. And of course I like Negaduck, but I think part of the reason I like Negaduck so much is when I was a kid, like I would watch Darkwing on TV, but the only episode I owned was the Just Us Justice Ducks, like VHS. And so it's just the same 2 or 3 part episode playing in a loop in my house. And so like in my head, it's just, we know the switch. And that's just stuck in my head for the last.
That's interesting. Years. I wonder if that's why, because I know Negaduck has a huge following. And I wonder if that sort of scarcity of episodes and exposure to the ones that were officially released contributed to that in households both sides yours. That's a really interesting question. I love Negaduck's color palette.
Yeah,
that is such a killer costume with the red hat and the black mask, and then the canary yellow jacket. It's so watchable.
It pops, and then like the red under the black on the cape, like just There's a lot.
It's really, really good.
I think, just on looks, it's Megavolt for me. I like the Liquidator. That's probably a top 3. But anyway, speaking of classic Disney characters, right? You are here because you are writing an issue of Lilo and Stitch 626. It's a 3-part anthology that's getting started. You are kicking it off on May the 20th. There will also be an issue releasing on June 26th, which, of course, is 626 Day, which I didn't even realize that was a holiday now. But, hey, I like it.
Forever. Starting now.
Starting right now. But in this book, you are going to be writing the secret origin of Agent Cobra Venom.
I'm really glad we talked about Darkwing Duck first. Because I had the exact same notes on this one. When they said, is there a Lilo and Stitch supporting character that you want to explore more, like unpack more? And I said Bubbles, because I love, the Men in Black aspects of Lilo and Stitch, the sort of the UFO sighting conspiracy aspect of Lilo and Stitch, and just the way that they, that movie arrives sort of at the tail end of X-Files, after Men in Black. Like, this trope is so firmly, like we were saying earlier with Daily Show, this trope is now so firmly implanted in the audience's brains that you can start riffing on it. And he's also, like, Darkwing Duck is an unreliable narrator because he's self-mythologizing and exaggerating and talking a lot. Cobra Bubbles is a wall.
Yeah.
He's not going to give you anything. So the way that we decided to tell that story, and, the way that we were permitted to tell that story, is that he's babysitting Lilo, and she starts asking him personal questions. And his whole approach to her, his whole defense mechanism to this is just, well, what do you think? Where do you think I worked? What do you think I did? What's the first alien that you think I saw? And so she starts telling his life story at him, basically making it up as she goes along. And he'll correct her whenever she stumbles on something like a little prickly, like he'll say, like, oh, I had hair. I wasn't born bald. I used to have hair. Like, so then he'll have hair, in her telling of it, he'll suddenly have hair. So it was a really fun, just from like, from a comedic standpoint, from a structural standpoint, it was a really fun way to tell this story and to bounce these characters off of each other. Somebody who is like Lilo, who just has that little girl, no filter thing, with, total guilelessness, total confidence, total honesty, just saying every thought that she's having. And then a guy who's like very closed off.
Right.
Just sort of, responding to it like hot or cold, hot or cold.
Nice. Now, I'm going to pause for a second, because the one screen I was like, I'm not going to use this screen. I have to do it because I got this preview page. So let me add your camera here.
Yeah.
Boom. There you go. And
nice.
Now we're back. Like, the CIA, a company, and like, now that we have this revelation that it's Lilo telling this story, it makes all the sense in the world. And I just love this page.
Right. Yeah. This is the art, I should say, in our story is by Elisa Pochetta. And I've never worked with her before, but she is great based on what I've seen so far. She really gets exactly what you're describing. She really gets the spirit of this, which is just somebody else's life in a game of telephone being repeated back to them. So the CIA looks like that because that's Lilo's best guess at what the CIA would look like.
Just a bunch of people indoors with binoculars.
Yep, being spies.
Right. That's amazing. That's amazing. I'm going to revert back to this other screen, but I just had to show the audience that because that's fun. So there we go. Whoops, that's not the right one. And welcome back, Mr. Kibblesmith. But yes, I had to show the audience that page because that's just amazing stuff. And now I'm even more excited for this. Funny enough, Lilo and Stitch might be the last animated, like 2D animated Disney movie that I really remember like that. Like, because Treasure Planet didn't really get revisited like that. Although my wife loves it. My wife watches Treasure Planet all the time. But for me, it kind of ends at Lilo and Stitch. And I have to ask, like, if there's a dryer that shows up in this issue or if you've retconned it and now it's just a little cabinet.
That's a great question. I that's the exact kind of like gently subversive thing that I do usually like try to latch onto,
Mhm.
like I'm not trying to get fired or break the toys. But I do get excited when you can do like a little meta joke
Mhm.
like that. And no, it didn't occur to me. I definitely would have done it if I'd remembered. Because I love that, the low stakes controversy of that change.
Right. I would never have known if Twitter didn't point it out. Like,
Oh yeah.
like this used to be a dryer, now it's just a cabinet. Like, and then the idea that like they just went and like reanimated that just to put it on streaming is like, who who thought of this? Like, who thought that was going to be an issue when it wasn't
I
an issue in
mean,
all these releases so far?
I think the answer is usually the legal department, like almost always. I think it's just a matter of like better safe than sorry.
That's fair. That's fair. And who knows? Maybe it like, because they've been playing Disney Channel reruns on the channel formerly known as ABC Family forever. So maybe that was changed long ago and we just didn't notice it until they put it on Disney Plus. But still amazing lore for me.
Certainly, the last time I saw it, the change had already happened. I watched it with my kid when she was about 2, and she loved it, and she is very much a Lilo. So I don't think I even noticed, if I'm being honest.
Right.
I have, mixed feelings about that kind of stuff because I do think that, it is interesting and illustrative, I guess, to sort of show stuff as it originally happened, but contextualizing it and making sure that it's not presented in a way that's just as though it wouldn't be offensive or dangerous to a modern audience. I think it's disingenuous or insulting to like rebroadcast like old offensive stuff without acknowledging that times have changed.
Yeah.
But I do like when the old stuff is available, just sort of from a academic or educational perspective, I guess. But something like keeping kids out of the dryer, that feels fine. You should change that.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't occur to me that like a kid might climb in the dryer because of that, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that affects like, like when you have like old movies on TCM, sometimes they'll talk a lot at the beginning about how it's like this is very offensive now,
right.
And it was offensive at that time, but it's not a conversation that was being widely had. I think with the changing the dryer into the cabinet, I don't know if anything fundamental about the art has been altered.
Right. Right. Like, I mean, this is a movie in which Child Protective Services is called on this, on this older sister. Like, I guess we should probably like make her feel less heat. Oh, that's not a pun intended, but hey.
No, but you're right. I think it's really interesting when, because people watch Disney stuff like so intensely. Like that's how you can come up with Easter eggs and Mandela effects and little secrets and stuff because people watch Disney stuff with such a close eye and they really study it. And Disney purposefully will in their media and their experiences, they'll have clues like the finding all the Mickey Mouse heads at the parks and things like that. So I do think that sometimes we do kind of like it's like a forest for the trees thing where it's like, oh, I wish they hadn't changed the dryer in Lilo and Stitch. I thought the dryer was funnier. And it's like, well, I don't know if like they remade Lilo and Stitch fairly recently and they changed the Child Protective Services story quite a bit because that was actually like a much more relevant, cultural revisiting of those concepts.
Right. That's interesting. I think it's interesting having these conversations about Disney in particular, just because Disney's usually the culprit. Like, not to get you fired off this book that you already wrote and has been produced. But
no, yeah, let's do it. Let's burn it all down.
Burn all the bridges. But no, like, I don't know. Like, I remember seeing like Song of the South in kindergarten, and it's like that movie doesn't exist anymore. Although Splash Mountain did for quite some time. Mm-hmm. But like, it's, I guess the life and times of Scrooge McDuck. And it's so weird. Like, they kind of pick and choose when it's like, all right, we're going to put this cultural sensitivity tag, and like, this was not okay then and it's not okay now. And then there's other times where like, we're going to disassociate from this completely. And it's like, well, how do you make that determination? I don't know. Like, from an academic level, like I think it's important to provide context and have it all available at the very least to be like, hey, look how much we've evolved. But I don't know what the right way to go about it is.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I'm sure that it is its own very individualized conversation every time. I'm guessing that if something that made as much money as, say, Frozen was 15 years from now seen as retrograde in some way that we didn't predict at that time, I think that they would rather. I assume that they would rather just put a warning at the beginning saying like, hey, some of this stuff in Frozen doesn't hold up, rather than eliminate Frozen, because Frozen is very successful and very popular. It makes a huge amount of money. Whereas something like Song of the South is like, I don't want my kid just like stumbling on that. Like, I think that is so far afield into its own category at this point that like she should learn about that in like a film school class where like maybe you watch part of it.
Right.
And then the organization is so big and has so many kind of tendrils in everything that like something like Splash Mountain I didn't know was associated with Song of the South until well into adulthood. And I think that they felt comfortable sort of just letting that ride because it didn't immediately evoke any of the same negative feelings.
Yeah. But I mean, it was all the cartoons and none of the workers.
Yeah. Yeah, the workers.
So that's interesting, and that's a fun thing to muse on. But I'll move on.
We probably should.
But with Lilo and Stitch 626, right? Like the call comes and it's like, all right, I want to tackle Bubbles. I called him Cobra Venom, which I guess word association.
Oh, that makes sense,
right? But
yeah, that makes total sense.
But I do love that it's like the one character we don't really know a ton about. It's like, nah, let's give him more meat. Let's have more to chew on with this guy. And I think it's also interesting because it's an anthology, but for those who aren't familiar, we had a Lilo and Stitch series. Greg Pak was writing that for a little while. That kind of sunset, and then we've had a Stitch solo book that's ongoing. James III and Connor Ratliff are writing that as we speak. And kind of in the middle of all this, we're going to get this 626 anthology. And so with the Stitch series that's happening now, like it's mostly like a Jumba and Pleakley story, but you get Stitch like just kind of ruining plans and stuff like that. But we don't see a ton of like Nani and the other supporting characters. So this anthology is really great to kind of giving them space to breathe and like exist in this world that they've been building out for a little while. So I'm excited about that. Is Bubbles your favorite character from the film, or do you have a secret favorite?
That's a great question. I mean, it's very hard for me not just to say that my favorite character is Lilo or my favorite character is Stitch because they are so. I mean, those are the characters that make me cry.
Yeah.
Like they're so potent, and their journeys and their very childlike needs are so powerful and primal that in TV is a little different than movies, where like with TV you get enough like serialized stories, and you do get this kind of spotlighting that you're talking about. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. Where and I believe there was a Lilo and Stitch TV show as well. There are probably a couple actually at this point, where I'm sure some of these characters have then gotten A stories so that their fans could see them in the spotlight. But in a movie, it can be hard for me not to just say like, oh, well, my favorite character is the main character.
Yeah.
Because that's the character that's taken me on this like very powerful journey. But Bubbles is a great example because he's a sort of like a leave you wanting more character, because his whole thing is that he's mysterious.
Right.
He's taciturn. He gives you very little. So I think he was the character that I was like the most drawn to, just the most compelled to want to explore, because he's the biggest question mark.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Visually, he's probably my favorite. Like there is a cover of that Stitch book that Edwin Gallman did, and it's like it's a straight up homage to the Men in Black.
Of course.
Movie posters. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Of course it is. This is amazing. I need that as a 12 by 18 print on my wall.
Yeah, for sure.
But
yeah, that was the vibe. That's what attracted me to him.
Nice. So with that, I should remind all of you in the audience that the final order cutoff, if you want Lilo and Stitch 626 issue number 1, which you do. That's the one we've been talking about all night. That comes out on May the 20th. And if you want to secure your copy, like absolutely secure it, you need to order it from your LCS before April 27th. That is the final order cutoff for this book. And I am going to, let's look and see. That seems odd. There are only 3 covers for this book. Allegedly.
3 covers for just issue 1?
For just issue 1, which
okay.
So
maybe issue 2 might have multiple covers. Issue 3 might have multiple covers.
If I know Dynamite, this is absolutely false. But
well, you know what? I would normally agree with you, but I also know that because of the Diamond distribution events. With some of the companies that we're more familiar with them doing a lot of variant covers. Some of them have scaled back as they've moved to other distributors.
That makes sense.
Some of them have new restrictions and stuff. But as somebody who doesn't have a lot of room in the house, I think 3 covers sounds perfect. I will absolutely buy 3 covers.
If it helps, one of the covers is a blank variant, so you can go and get an artist at a con to do.
I will draw on that if they bring it to me. Yeah,
nice.
I will try to draw. I will draw like a very bad Stitch in the grass skirt.
Now, apparently, there's also a blind bag variant, so maybe that's where all the variants went.
Okay.
That's a nice way to put 1 million covers in one SKU.
Yeah, I didn't know there was a blind bag. That's going to be fun.
That is going to be fun. I hope I get the Bubbles cover. The blind bag will be $10. But there's one limited edition of the issue selected randomly from a range of covers that are all exclusive to the blind bag. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, I think mystery solved then.
Right. But that means that if you get the blind bag, you're not going to feel like a sucker and get the cover A after spending $10. Like no matter what, you're a winner. So that's exciting.
That's right. Yeah. You get to open that thing like a pack of Pokemon cards.
Right. Which trading cards have made a huge resurgence.
Oh yeah. We're back. I think it's because young people grew up with screens and they want a physical media that they own again.
Yeah. One of my guilty pleasures is this guy named Speed Sultan. I guess I shouldn't call it a guilty pleasure. He's a cool YouTuber, but
sure.
he does these pack openings. Like first of all, he does these new comic book day vlogs, and they're like 40 minutes long, but they feel like a series of like 40 TikToks just cobbled together, but in regular format. So you're not just looking like this much of the screen. But anyway.
Sounds like he's kind of cracked the attention span problem. That's really interesting.
Right. It certainly got my attention, but one of the things he does fairly often is just opening random packs. And I didn't even know they have like Batman the Animated Series trading cards and like DC Universe trade. Like, it's just so many different types of trading cards. And I'm like,
yeah,
who are you trading these with? No one else knows these exist.
It's probably more collecting than trading right now. Right. But yes, I think you're right.
It's still fun to see them get open though. And the joy on his face. It's like, oh man, it's Barry Allen. But
that's pretty cool. Yeah. I know that guy.
Right. So anyway, get your blind bag and you can have your own pack opening experience. And again, pre-order Lilo and Stitch 626. Of course, we're here talking about issue 1. Just go ahead and subscribe to the whole series. Issue 2 is going to be written and drawn by Edwin Gallman, who has been doing the covers for Stitch for the last 12 months or so. So if you like the covers, stick around for the interiors. He also did The Lion King. So that was cool. If you like how that looked, like, check that out. And now I have to look up issue 3 because I don't want to leave anyone out. Turns out issue 3 is not solicited yet. So sorry.
Not our fault.
Sorry for y'all. But
it's gonna be great. I mean, they have access to such great people, and like I'm saying, like, there's no shortage of creators out there who just love these characters, and they're gonna bring so much love to their renderings of them. For sure. And I'm excited to see it. So once again, thank you, Mr. Daniel Kibblesmith, for your time. Go out, grab Lilo and Stitch 626, and if they're looking to follow you anywhere else, where might they do so? Oh man, I think right now I'm just on Instagram. I'm at Daniel.Kibblesmith on Instagram. I also have my own website, which is kibblesmith.com, and I try to update it pretty regularly when I have new stuff coming out. Nice. Well, I will leave links to kibblesmith.com in the description down below. Thank you guys for watching and or listening. And I don't know what you're doing after you listen to this. I would recommend, checking out some other interviews. We've got several of them here on the channel, but hey, maybe you're all listened out. And if so, that's fine. Stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.